Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 14th of March 2023 and the big sighting that I said you were going to see has come in. You've watched, you're just seeing Merapi volcano going off in Indonesia, big pyroclastic flows coming down the side. You come up to the earthquakes that have just occurred very recently. That was on the 4th of March, the New Zealand earthquake, 6.9. I said to you, you're going to start seeing, we've just had one flyby. We just had, which flyby did we have before? We saw that one. We saw this big object eclipsing the sun around about the, where was it? It was around about that was posted by World of Signs on the 24th of November. So it was around about that time, probably about the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And then we had that sign that we had that over exactly when I said our classic January the 20th kind of like a sighting that I said you'd see coming in. People trying to tell you it's an atmospheric body, and it's just simply not, I'm afraid. And I'm going to try and explain that, why this not the same object, it's a pair, and why they do this, and let's think about this. Let's think about this shot and what we're actually seeing there. So before we go any further, let's just come now to the 22nd of Feb 2023. So this was posted also by World of Signs. I'm saying look out for it, exactly the same thing. It's very small, it's just beginning to come into view. Now remember that when you see the moon and in the daylight sky, the sun has got to be pretty much on the far side of your field of view. So you're going to most likely see the moon up in the sky as we're getting closer to the full moon stage, as in the moon's on the far side of the sun, far side of the earth to the sun. And so it starts coming into view. And this is no different. You will not see something that's close to the sun that's out in space, and that is out in space. And the fact I can predict it so accurately over and over and over and over and over again, very, very precisely, very accurately like this, tells you what you're expecting to see. So let's just remind ourselves. Let's go back to the my my original model. Not the original model, but the model I produced in 2020, but runs up to July this year. And so we come back to where I'm saying this object's coming round. Let's like I say, these aren't utterly precise. The ratios aren't correct. This was to try and get it all onto a single kind of like to bring it all into kind of get an idea of the overall total movements of the pair Kerberos and Charon, which are both named after the moons of Pluto. Because in this current cycle, we call this, well, we don't call this Pluto, but this was when Pluto arrived in supposedly 1930. All of this same subject was going on. All the long duration volcanoes were happening right up to 1939. Well, it weren't up to, Vesuvius went off in 44, and La Palma went off in 49, and Carlos Ferrada's big prediction of the massive earthquake that would occur that occurred on the 20th of January 1939. We've got the pattern of these things. It's exactly 84 years ago that all that was going on, the exact orbital period of Uranus. So we see this 84 years. We know that Neptune is 2 times 84 in its orbital duration. Pluto is 3 times 84. There's 84 years between Neptune and Pluto. We see these kind of grand cycles coming in since this whole system really arrived. What you could call the Jupiter system, the Pluto system, whatever you want to call it, the big system that actually arrived that gives us these patterns, and has been giving these patterns for the last 400 years because of a very peculiar orbital arrangement. And we can see by being able to predict the patterns, and for me to be able to predict this latest flyby, you can see I'm saying this, the angle of these coming into the sun, as I always talk about in these videos, you know, when the Pluto system was above us, cutting down to cross the ecliptic, or we're actually cutting up to cross the ecliptic, objects were coming down from this system, being drawn into our sun, coming right round and going back up. Now, for the last kind of 4 or 5 years, they've been all level, so they've been coming across and coming round and going back out, but they've been coming on the same ecliptic, which is why we've been having the long durations. And now all that is reversing, and now, as we are now coming round here, we are cutting up through the system. So for the first time, objects are having to come up to us. So they're coming round, and if you like, coming up to us here, which is why I've set it at this ecliptic, and I've kept it at this ecliptic all the way through, because just to build this animation, like I say, but is massively complicated. But if you can imagine, as this object comes around here now, and is going to cross, I've got it, you know, coming in like that. It has to cut across the front of the sun pretty much, and it's going to go in between us here, and it's going to come out in the July period. So in this phase here, you know, this is ballpark arrangements. So we you know, it's ballpark arrangements. But you can imagine that you're going to see this coming up in the southern aspect of. You're only going to see it when your point of view of it is going to be when it's, from our perspective, furthest away from the sun, where we can see it like we can see the moon. So let's go back now to that shot. Now you can understand that's coming up from the south, and it's at this point here. There's going to be a point where it's going to enter into our night sky, and so we're going to see white orbs in the night sky. Notice that, look where Earth is as we go back. Now, as we just go back here, look what's right next to Earth at this point here as well. Mars is in this picture as well. So we should be able to get some corroborating evidence of the big red one, and the big Jupiter, the big red one, the big blue Jupiter one, and the flybys. We should be able to see something, you know, from Mars, because Mars is very close into this picture, and then we should be able to see this object at sunset or sunrise, or if it's deep down in the southern aspect of our globe, then we should be able to see it down here as it's coming round from the Earth's perspective. We should be able to see that in the southern aspect, as long as it stays far enough away from the sun. So, and then as it comes around here, as it comes around and cuts across our path, and it gets bigger and bigger as it cuts across our path, it's going to disappear out of view. You won't be able to see that. You know, it might be affecting us, but that, if you can't see the moon and it's right there, what hope in hell have you got a chance of seeing that thing? It's going to be when the photons from the sun hit our atmosphere, they hit O2, and they turn O2 into O and O, and that O and O immediately oxidizes anything in the vicinity. You know, O2 is the highest oxidant. It's two O's, so they'll just oxidize anything. And O on its own will even oxidize O2 and produce O3, ozone. And that massive formation of ozone, because of photons hitting our atmosphere, creates a light unto itself beyond the sunlight hitting and reflecting, that doesn't interact with the atmosphere at all and literally bounces off and reflects out. I'm talking about the light that hits our atmosphere and causes a reaction, a chemical reaction within our atmosphere, and which is the formation of ozone, and which is also the formation of this plasmoid effect, where the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere of our Earth lights up like a neon light. We can't see through that glare. We just can't see through that glare, so we get these window of this massive object and only aspects of it as it comes in, but it is predictable. And I've done this over and over and over and over again. Do you remember when I turned up on the 17th of August 2017 in America after the massive flyby that I'd predicted in where was it? It was the beginning of 2017. It was so I turned up in America for that flyby and saying this is going to turn, and as I touched down, this big flyby comes across, and you have the ESO, the European Southern Observatory, saying that, you know, a massive electron burst had hit the planet, and this meant that 230 million light years away, literally, what they said, two neutron stars had collided, and it proved that electromagnetic rays travelled as fast as light rays, and this changed the whole shape of the universe. And yet there it was. I'd said you're going to see it. Steve Olson had put a massive conference, who I spoke to recently. I didn't speak to him, but I had a little communication with him, and he's doing well. He's in a good space. He's looking after he's putting a lot of time looking after his son at the moment, Matthew, and he's in a great space. I just thought I'd just tell you, you know, I mean, Steve's all right. Steve's all right. We love him dearly. Miss him like fuck, but yeah. But anyway, you know, that the flyby that had obviously put me on the map was that one. Same thing, and people saying, oh, it's a lenticular cloud, like they're saying with this latest flyby. Oh, that's what it is. It's a lenticular. But you just saw the whole thing flying across, and people just filming it. And it was on the day of Trump's inauguration. It was a spectacular flyby that put me on the map, and there it is. And do you remember that? Remember the one after? Because what's happening is after this point, it drops back one calendar month each year. So we go to 2018. To go after that. Do you remember that shot from Relentless Maverick catching it there? And it's been copied so many times. I can't remember the name of that the video maker who put that up there. But you might be able to recognise that. We might be able to get a better copy of that. But you know, there were epics. But that big one that Steve Olson posted, which was that one. You know, because it's dropped back one calendar month, if you like. You know, if we go back to 2011, we're going to explore that photo. We are going to come to that. But we come back to 2011. There we are, syncing up again. We come round to 2012 at the same time, and now they've dropped back one calendar month, and we come back another year, and now see how they're dropping back, and we're not going to. It's not going to be till 2023 that they're all coming synced up again, because they're dropping back one calendar month each year. And we can see this because of all the volcanic and earthquake activity we've had going back, right back to 1902, when, well, I mean, Archaeos, the YouTube channel, he was just like hundreds of billions of tons of red mud, and we know it was iron because it nearly sunk. It was so heavy when it came down on the ship decks. It blanketed the world, covered islands, ships, you name it. It was a massive, massive, massive event. Loads of iron just falling from the sky, you know. And we can see every 12 years we have this repeat activity, massive dams, massive earthquakes, massive seismology, that I can predict these things accurately, very accurately. I can predict this flyby as clearly as happening. So we're going to look at that shot, and we're going to look. Let's when Blake and Brent talk about it, they talk about this. It's a great shot, by the way. It's just a fantastic shot, and you so deserve to get that shot, because this is what you're all about, and this is the most magnificent shot, one of the most magnificent shots I've seen, and you've really caught quite a few of them. So just really amazing. It's just incredible. But I'm of a mind it's not a lenticular cloud, and I'm going to try and explain why. So in his video, he talks about being on the Hamakua coast. Excuse me if I pronounce that incorrectly. But let's just come now to that valley shot. Overview of the Waipio's Valley from the opposite side. So let's come to the map. This is the coast. Maybe that would be a better shot here. That seems to be the what did I call it? The sorry, I just said that. Hamakawa coast. So that seems to be the Hamakawa coast, and this is the Waipio Valley. Excuse my pronunciation. I always Kilauea and no, it's Kilauea, because of Kilauea. I guess Kilauea must be down here and Mauna Loa must be up here, because that seems to be higher topography. But I don't actually know that. But well, it does seem to be along those sort of lines. But if we go back to this photo now, we know this is sunset. We can see it's lighter on this side. There's no mountains in view, and they're on the coast. They're looking that way. I have to assume that he's somewhere over here, and he's looking down this way. He could be looking across that way, but the light doesn't indicate. If he was looking across that way, I'd expect the light to be on the left. I'm of a mind he's looking down that way. He's looking south. And when I see that shot that was in Hawaii also, posted by Brandon Corey Nagley there on the also at the same time. It's just these are all just recent. These are all just come in. So that's on the 12th. That was 2 days ago. So, you know, I've left it a little bit because I can imagine everyone's just going to go as lenticular clouds and blah blah blah. But it's kind of weird that they're coming in exactly. But look at the diameter of that. And now that I'm of a mind, the light is to the left. I'm of a mind that is. I don't know this, but I'm of a mind that will be a morning shot. But certainly with this shot here, you can really sense that the sun is to the right, and you'd see a lot more. If this was to the right hand side of the sun, we would see we'd see a lot more. We'd see a lot more mountains, a lot more stuff coming up here in the field of view, and we're not seeing that. And we've got the sun, what appears to be to the right hand side of the view, which places that in exactly the place I'm imagining it to be in. And what's actually happened there is, from the sunrise perspective, this has come into view before sunrise, and then it stayed deep in the southern aspect, following almost below the ecliptic of our planet, travelling almost parallel but slightly below our planet in the southern aspect of our solar system, but tracking with us, just like I'm showing in this model here, and is actually staying down here and is basically coming round us and has gone ahead of us. And the fact that from that point in the morning to that point by the end of the day tells you that it's coming round us. It's coming round us, and it's cutting in across here, and at the moment it is just underneath us, which means that when we've just seen Merapi volcano going off, and we can see how much on the ecliptic this really is, it's coming right up to the ecliptic. We can see that, you know, Kilauea volcano is about to go off. This is going to be a big eruption for Kilauea volcano, but this is going to carry on into the northern hemisphere as it crosses in very close proximity to Earth. And and its greatest point of effect is most likely the biggest volcanoes in this range are going to come when it crosses the ecliptic, and it's going to be when it's above the ecliptic. That's going to be its closest proximity to us, likely, which means that it's going to be Etna, it's going to be Stromboli, it's going to be Icelandic volcanoes, it's going to be earthquakes in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be volcanoes going off in all around the northern hemisphere, Vesuvius. It's going to be kind of like, remember that volcanoes are not bad things. They're not bad things. Even with Morapic going off right now, yes, they cover certain buildings with ash, but they are vital for our ecosystem and everything else like that. I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing. This is just what's happening. This is the big reset time. This is what all our governments are preparing for. What happens if there's a massive electromagnetic burst when this thing reaches closest proximity, or a plasma burst between the two, and causes complete shutdown of anything electronic, and only that which sits above the massive rise in Schumann resonance, like satellites, these low orbit satellites that they've put in, that very potentially could be their main hope of getting us through a electromagnetic burst that happened same as what happened in 1859. 1859 was one of the longest duration volcanic eruptions of Kilauea, as well as being the time in August where, because remember, August is the point where, when we come over here and we see, if I go back a year, August is that point where objects crossing out on the other side. That what you've got these objects coming in here. Anything coming in here is kind of February, March affecting us. Anything going out here is July, August affecting us. Anything coming in from this system that doesn't go around our sun is kind of like September, and then going out in October. And so and objects coming in is January, February, March, going out in July, August, and things that not going right, going around our sun, but being pulled in towards our sun, but doing kind of a perturbation, if you like, of their existing orbit, but coming close to our sun. That we've charted these objects and we've seen them. We've seen their whole orbital track and the curve, and they realise they don't go. There's at least one of these objects that doesn't go around our sun. It comes in, but it certainly cuts through the path of Mars. Certainly cuts through the path of Earth. Whether it actually goes out to crosses the path of Venus and Mercury is an unknown, but we've definitely charted it coming in and going out there, and we've seen all the patterns of it. Guys, I wouldn't be able to predict these things so accurately if it was atmospheric. If these things were atmospheric, it would be utterly impossible. It would just be utterly impossible. Utterly impossible. It makes no sense. This thing sits exactly where I've told you, and the reason it stayed in view all day was it was tracking with us in a place all day. Now we go back to we explored that shot when we saw that this was over Turkey just before the earthquake, and so we know what's coming in. The difference with this specific object was it was behind us, way behind us. It was in a very different perspective. This was a very interesting shot. This is UFO. UFOVNI to UFO VN 2020. I think there's a whole playing the words there, but she's been this. I don't know if it's a woman actually, but it does sound like a woman when speaking. But that could be an electronic voice. I don't know, but it's a French. It seems to be a French video maker. I'm not too sure, but I found that shot. It was I think it was around about January 2023, but from Mars, and there's our big blue object, the one that the one that we know that's coming in, the one that we've just charted for so many years now, and we can predict every part of its movements. If I come to this model and I come up to 2020, remember that shot by Nick Thomas around about the 9th of July 2020, and then on the 20th of January, on the 20th of July, the day my mum passed, ironically, Steve Rads sent me a most epic shot of the stripy blue planet, corroborating this shot. It's small there, it's distant, it's just getting bigger, it's on a trajectory out there. So, you know, for every year that goes by, this object moves what seems to be one calendar month forward, and these movements are really precise. They're like the hands of a very precise clock, and we can take them right back to, as the Archaics channel has explored, right back to 1902 when we had the big flyby in 1902. You go back to 1859. When these things were first coming in, and we were very distant, we were very far away from the object, so it gave it a much more opportunity to have a much more coming in much closer to the ecliptic. And then as we came closer and it dropped underneath us so much more, these objects have been coming up, which makes it, when they're coming right, when objects are coming, should I say, right down to Earth, right down to our sun, and coming right round, they don't really have the chance to cross the orbital track of our planets, you know, because they're not coming in on the same ecliptic. So the planets sit too far away from the sun, so they drop down, they come around the sun, but they don't come past Earth, they don't come past Mars. It's only when they're coming in on the same ecliptic. But when they were coming in they're kind of like in 1840, 1850, they were so far away, they were to, you know, this sort of time that because they all look so close together there, you know, but it's the gap starts getting bigger here, if you like, where they start dropping. It's the idea of the inclination of coming down to our sun and then coming back up. It changes. It's really difficult for them to affect us. So for this whole period, we only get once every 12 years a kind of an earthquake or something like that. But beyond that, and we say Halley's Comet when we see one of the closest objects come by and get near Earth, and we see it. But that's all we get until these kind of critical points, or when we're on the other side and we're a long way away, and these kind of points where we start getting this gap is big enough. Objects at this point, you know, this was Galileo's time, but obviously these are ballpark figures and these proportions. You know, you're not really understanding the kind of idea of the distance between these two, and how that distance, the longer that distance is, and that point when they first start looping around each other, or when the Pluto system planets start actually traveling and reaching our sun, that in it seems that 1840, 1850, the distance was long enough to create a situation where they travelled far enough that they were able to come a little bit closer to the ecliptic of planet Earth, which is why I'm of mind that 1859, you know, the massively long duration volcanic Kilauea and the Carrington event, every piece of electrical machinery just either exploded, melted. You know, any electrical motor, just like in nuclear power stations when you're running the pumps, and if you're running a pump at full whack, an electric pump, and the Schumann resonance goes through the ceiling, the pump turns into an induction welder and melts the central spindle, and then you have got no pump on the nuclear power station. And of course, if Fukushima went bang on the day of a massive flyby, this is how we were able to predict this. We were calling it Comet Elenin in 2011, and Comet 2012 we're calling it Comet Ison. I just simply showed you that every 200 days they invent a new comet, but it's the same thing, and it's part of the same system, and and then obviously 2018 that will change with suddenly we had Kilauea going off on May the 4th, the first of the long duration volcanoes in our time, in our epoch, and which has led to a lot more than that. And of course we had a sighting that I couldn't explain, that didn't fit into my existing model, which basically left me completely and utterly lost, and spending a long time researching, trying to work out how to see the model that we exist in and that we really exist in. And it took another 2 years before I finally, before Alex Luhan's really famous shot on the 1st of September 2019, that we saw the object coming in and going out and not coming around our sun at all. And that was the object that doesn't go around our sun. And when we saw that, I was just like, I could build this current model, and I can correct this obviously enormously now. There's so many corrections I can make to this now, but I can't give you any greater proof than what you've just had, and I can't express to you any, we have seismology coming our way, big seismology coming our way, and that's what it's all about. And you're going to see now that directly after this, you are going to come into, they're going to be I do love these guys' channels. They've got quite a few channels going on, and they have a lovely take on the world, the universe, and everything. And I just really I love their work, and they're watching this very very closely. And of course I'm seeing all this. I know that NATO, after this flyby, this is gone, it's like Jesus is gone, we can all go to war again, and NATO will begin its full and utter, they've all been getting rid of all their old weapons and everything else like that, and just turning it all into profit, making it all look fantastic, the whole Ukraine thing. And so NATO it's like I said in my book, Laughing Gas, Britain will be used as the Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war against Russia, all in the name of free trade deals. And if we leave Europe, our fate is sealed, and we are going down that corridor now. There's nothing I don't think in England that could stop this now. It's come too far. And so how to stop this, how to stop World War III, the only thing that stands between what I can see stopping World War III, they're going to crash the banks now. They're going to get ready to kind of release their digital currencies. They're going to use this whole credit system to kind of to number one, crash the currencies now. And so if they're going to crash the currencies and move into these new central bank digital currencies, the bill has just been released. You're seeing Tucker Carlson going on about the new bill that is going to make that is going to ban any other form of digital currency, and make the only legal digital currency a central bank digital currency, run by the government, legal, and any other currency will be thereafter illegal. And so, you can see the banks, this has all been created by the banks, so the banks are now going to be migrating their money into that. And you can imagine the situation. This is all after this flyby, because they know this is massive. You can see it's massive. You can see it's massive, what's coming in. There's absolutely no doubt in it. You can see the seismology. You can see the way, the earthquakes, the volcanoes are just systematically, just like all the other flybys, are all just moving down. Kilauea is going to go bang next. It's going to be a very, very... it's going to be a pyroclastic flow. It's like it's not a big spewing type of volcano. This, you can get Everest into the whole Hawaii system, the mountain that it really is overall, like 230 times. It's a massive mountain volcano. and it's got huge pressure underneath it. Unless it splits right open, this is not going to be a long duration volcano either. This is passing through the ecliptic. This is going to be, it's going to be Kilauea going off. It's going to go off for about 2 weeks, and then it's going to be moving into the southern hemisphere. It might be even less than 2 weeks, but it's, you know, that's all coming up. All these volcanoes are going to start moving up through the ecliptic and heading up into the northern hemisphere of our world. Excuse me. But what I want you to think about is that one of the problems with releasing a central bank digital currency that supposedly is going to be backed by gold and other kind of like precious commodities, and however they're going to try and underpin these currencies, because that's what they have to do. All countries now have to have, can't have a speculative fiat-based currency that is just given its value by the amount of depleted uranium you're willing to dump on anyone who doesn't play your game. That's terrorism. That's just pure terrorism. And the currencies that have been running the world since the gold standard was removed have been run through just war and terrorism. And that's all changing now. It's all becoming a level playing field because everyone's got the same level of technology. You know, it's just everyone's got the same. What happens when everyone's got nuclear weapons? Everyone's got super sophisticated rockets that can shoot everyone else's rockets out of the sky. There's no winning. There's no winners in this. If this carries on, it's just all-out destruction. So, you know, what do you do in a case of, you know, you can't just release a new digital-backed currency and then think that everyone is not going to go and try and use their existing currency, which has absolutely no value, and the only thing that underpins it, like I say, is the gun under the table. So, how do they release a digital-backed currency when the dollars and the pounds and the euros all still exist? How do they release one of those? Well, isn't everyone going to go out and try and buy digital money with their fiat-based, non-value money, gun under the table money? It's not going to happen. So they have to cancel one before they start the other. And this is the conundrum. And so there's how do you get around this massive problem of when you see, you know, the book that when I wrote Laughing Gas, I had with me a trusty little. I'm just going to close the door a sec while they're making that noise over there. Yeah, I had with me a copy of this book called The Party's Over. I forget the author's name now, but it was a statistician's fanfare of what's just epic statistics that really kind of showed you through various different means the massive population that has exploded since the discovery of guano, fossilized bird poo. Which there was like 20-30 million tons that was excavated from Peru from about 1815 to 1900, and then we learnt to create ammonia and nitrous-based fertilizers, which makes amazing fertilizer and also makes amazing bombs. That's why Israel kind of makes doesn't really export oil as per se, but it does produce nitrates, which is like taking massive amounts of energy and converting it into the next most lucrative thing, which is nitrates, and which they export a lot of, and it's like refining it into something that's worth a lot more money, and that population explosion has all been bought through hegemony, control of the currencies. And anyone who hasn't played ball has gone under the wheels of it, and all these different kind of agreements have been pushed on all these different countries to force them to comply with US dollar, pound hegemony. We won the war, and you kind of lost hegemony, kind of. And now it's all it's a level playing field all round. You know, these ideas. Europe was about to kind of supply Ukraine with Europe was on the edge. I mean, laughing gas, this is everything I predict this. When you see that all they want to do is take you into a free trade deal so you can carve you up in ways you cannot believe, but they can't do that all the time you're part of the European Union, it's very easy to see what's going to happen. It's very, very, very easy to see. It's like watching a crack in a dam and kind of trying to pretend you don't know what's going to happen. Or watching this thing fly by until you can see exactly every last movement of it and then trying to pretend it's not going to happen. It's very easy. That's what I could write. Laughing Gas, the whole book, publish it in 2011 saying, guys, they're going to try and take us out of Europe and feed us into a war against Russia, and it ain't going to work. This is the message that I'm being given from my kind of, when I connect to my high space, the message I was given was Britain comes to a juncture. It stays in Europe and weathers the storm, or it cuts its anchors and heads west. But if it heads west, its fate is sealed. It will not be allowed to do this to the rest of the world. It will not be allowed to do this. Europe will not be broken. Europe will break away from this war. Europe will break away from this war. It will see it cannot win. It cannot win on any level. It will pull out and realise its best chance of survival is backing away from this war. It cannot win. It is total all-out destruction for Europe if it gets involved in this. It knows it. Once it starts, it loses complete control of it. And you've heard it's just backed away from supplying jets. It was that close, and then suddenly it's just like, if we supply jets, we are. And then what's happened with just recently is everyone's just like, oh, Russia's running out of all its old weapons. You know, you've been hearing that America's been getting rid of all its old, you know, Patriot missile kind of like missile systems and all these, you know, way before the THAAD missile systems. You know, we've just watched, you know, the Patriot came. These are all missiles that should knock out missiles, not missiles out the sky. You know, the Americans had the Patriot systems, then the kind of the Russians had the S-300s, and then the Americans got the THAADs, and then the kind of like the Russians got the S-400, and then the Chinese have come up with a whole new rocket that can shoot THAAD rockets out of the sky. These are rockets that shoot rockets that shoot rockets. So what's actually happened now in the fighting place, it's become just a numbers game. Literally just a numbers game. If they can shoot 10 rockets in a second, then the enemy just has to shoot 11. And everyone's trying to kind of like stop their ability in the manufacture. So the next thing is going to be massive kind of trying to attack the supply chains. Because once a war starts where you're dealing with supersonic weapons, the Third World War lasts about... Literally, when the Third World War starts, it's only, you know, it's minutes. It's more minutes than hours. It lasts more minutes than hours. You know, because that level of technology, when it gets released, you know, these are hypersonic rockets there now that they've got. You know, everyone does a numbers game where you just shoot out a certain amount of rockets to drain off everyone's kind of reserve to knock more rockets out of the sky. Because, yeah, you've got the most amazing rockets and they can knock amazing rockets out of the sky. So everyone just sends out the number that they think they've got to send out that drains everyone's immediate supply of whatever they've got, countermeasure-wise, and then you start sending your real destructive stuff in the gap between the reload point, where you suddenly everything's empty and you can't reload fast enough, and it's just like, and that's what this is. So that's why the Third World War will be a very, 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 if we allow it to go into a full Third World War, it will be a very, very quick thing. It will be a very quick thing, because economically each party won't be able to do anything else other than that. So it'll be like, look, this is we do this or we don't do this. This is just complete annihilation if we do this. But that's why I can't go there. That's why I say in Laughing Gas, you know, the answer I got in Laughing Gas was, don't worry about your world. I've already deployed my best. Unprecedented peace will now be waged on your planet. That this is not going to happen. That this is all seeming like it's going to happen, but this is part of a big story. And there's lots and lots of different agendas all coming around here and all coming in. And ultimately, this is all just boiled down to one simple thing: that this is humanity going into a singularity. This is each human deciding which soul it wants to be. That's all this is. It's a massive bottleneck. And it looks really messy, and really complicated, and it's all so unbelievable, every part of it. Most of you out there can only believe that carbon dioxide is bad and that you've got to build nuclear power stations on your nearest fault line to stop the carbon dioxide spewing out of volcanoes. Even though you're seeing, you know, Etna kind of or Stromboli when it goes bang and it's producing like 80 million tons of magma, you know, or 80 million tons of carbon dioxide. God knows how many million tons of magma goes up into the sky and doesn't come back down. Just turns into a gas because it's got the fuel, it's got the air, it's got the heat, it's got all the kind of things it needs to burn off all that matter and turn it mostly into carbon dioxide. And it's, you know, it you know, it dwarfs whatever we're collectively producing. And then you look at all these volcanoes going bang now, all this kind of carbon dioxide going into the air, and the environment loves it. The environment loves it. There's only 0.04% carbon dioxide in the air. The entire environmental movement, as far as I can see, has been hijacked with bullshit profiteering agendas that are they're just pushed. They're just same thing. It's just hegemony. It's just massive amounts of money buying bullshit agendas, telling you it's all just feeding nuclear. You know, this whole kind of carbon story. If you were carbon zero, you'd been dead. You know, you can see why Bill Gates pushes carbon zero with his vaccines, that you can get to carbon zero through a vaccine. And you know what? That bit I don't disbelieve. That bit I really just don't disbelieve anymore. Heartbreaking as it seems, you know, he's using the same environmentalists. I was one of those. I once believed, you know, I have to really question what the whole movement of led me into my kind of whole activism and that sort of stuff. For me, started as going to the Stones, started as all the gatherings, the original gatherings that we used to have, that all started as these celestial kind of gatherings, you know, Stonehenge and Avebury Ring, and these kind of like these cosmic gatherings and these parties and these celebrations. For me, they were connections to God and the divines. They made me a pilgrim, not an environmentalist. I was connecting with God. I was connecting with the divine. I was connecting with the source. I was connecting with the great mystery, you know, and then chasing all the eclipses, going off you know, chasing all the eclipses for the years I did that. It was, you know, what brings us together hasn't always been these environmental kind of bullshit stuff that's just been a big push to kind of like, most of it's just been a big push to make massive amounts of money and push and supply depleted uranium to the armaments, because without this bullshit carbon story, we wouldn't have a way in which to build these nuclear power stations. They wouldn't have the, you know, they're seen as an environmental movement because of the carbon zero story, and it's bullshit. It's just to create nuclear bombs and depleted uranium bombshells, because all these missiles, they wouldn't do any damage really, would they? You could put TNT in them and that sort of stuff and blow things up, but they want a bigger bang for their buck, and they need all-out war now, not to save this world, not to save this agenda. This isn't about saving this agenda, saving this world. This is about the vibration they want to plunge humanity down into now, to lower its vibration, because of the massive door that's opening up to humanity right now. That's all that's opening up. And through pilgrimage, through connection to the divine right now, there is so much available to all of us on this planet, so much beyond anything we can believe right now. This is a magical time. It's a magical time, and they are going to try and throw a demonic story at you, but you have to stay in the here and the now. You've got to navigate through these times, see what's coming up, do whatever you can, and just navigate through these times. This is the big bottleneck that you come to now. So it's all happening inside of you. You in yourself are going through a massive process right now. A massive, if you like, splitting, a tearing. You're letting go of one part of yourself. and keeping hold of another part of yourself. And we're all just, I said, when do you step in? When I had my big communication with what I would call the divine God, or whatever you want to call it, I said, when do you step in? And the answer I got was, at the moment I have both feet in, but if you don't want me, I'll take both feet out. And that's what's happening right now. Is this really ultimately is the arrival of a whole new soul group into Earth. This is, if you like, it's the invasion of the body snatchers, but in reality it's actually an invitation. We are choosing. They cannot just come in and take your body. You have to voluntarily offer that for your belief systems that you go into and what you empower. And many of us have been attached to a very low vibrational story. Even though we've been meaning to save the planet, we've been attached to some very low vibrational stories that are attempting to drag us down with them. And that is the carbon zero story. It is demonizing a very, very sacred process, a very sacred gas, and leading you into a story that is causing the separation of your highest aspects. It's the story of war, the story of aggression, the story of all of this stuff that's driving this now. And so you've got to really, it's so much more of an internal process you're going through now. We won't be able to kind of, the only thing that stands now between us and World War III is this big red cloud. And whatever this does is about the last thing that can stop World War III. And Europe. If Europe breaks away from NATO now and realises it's being played, it's like it's a big game of risk now. The longer you stay involved in NATO, any country stays involved in the NATO agenda, its future becomes ever more questionable. It is the gods will not allow this to happen. They will not allow those who are pushing this horrible agenda behind NATO. They will not allow this agenda to destroy this earth. It won't happen. Honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous. I hope this helped a little bit. You've just watched, for one day, you saw this whole thing come into view just as I said you would, just as because it is utterly predictable. Every part of this is utterly predictable. If you can't see this now with that blatancy, it's simply because you are with another agenda. And that's okay. There's no wrongs in this. Everyone is choosing their truth right now and their God. And some have to push another truth out, no matter how hard. They're in a state of belief. They cannot see the blatancy of what is so now utterly predictable, obvious. And it means that you may be not who you think you are. And we've all got to go on our journey now. It's all a journey of discovery. Dobbs is unwittingly becoming an undercover psychic detective on the trail of the greatest gold robbery ever conceived. So large that it's taken quite some time, millennia in fact, to plan and get everything in place. Now it seems all the thieves have to do in this romantic and deeply obscure psychedelic thriller is blow the safe doors. But that's not as easy as it might sound. There's only one thing powerful enough to bust through the walls of this time-lacked vaulted world, and that's karma. If you can harness enough of it and apply it in the right way at the right time, well, karma mixed in with the essential incendiary ingredients, pain and fear. then the doors can be blown clean off the hinges. The problem for Dobbs, he's so undercover that he himself has no clue of his mission and is driven only by a fateful blast of laughing gas he took at Reading Rock Festival 2 years prior that hooked him up to what felt like all the sadness in the world. Little did he know that a tempest of the most Shakespearean proportions had entered his life on that day and is about to sweep him away to the depths of the Peruvian Amazon on a mission to find Ariel, Prospero's boding spirit. Join Dobbs in this nitrous fueled quest to find the only thing left he believes that can stop an apocalyptic showdown, which haunts him after his blast of laughing gas, and that's a miracle. Just because you are your final destination doesn't mean it's not going to be a bumpy ride. Excuse me, kind of. I'm struggling to read that at the moment because my glass is terrible, but it's the typo is fading on the back of this one. I've just not been able to, but that ending there, the just because you are your final destination doesn't mean it's not going to be a bumpy ride. And that sentence in itself is just because you are coming back to a singularity that operates in your heart, whichever soul you choose. There is no right or wrong. Each human has the right to choose the soul which incarnates within it. You're all channeling. You're all channels. And you've been trained to channel certain things which you've believed are your thoughts, or you've believed your thoughts are who you are, and we have been trained to tune to certain frequencies, and these frequencies are taking us down, and the ones who thought that they are the most spiritually advanced in this process have often turned out to be the furthest from that, have turned out to be massive egos that are pushing terrible agendas that work against anything that is sustainable for this planet, and so that's what's going on right now. That's your process. For me, it's much more coming back now to the whole process of laughing gas. I've got no hope of, I'll never convince the masses out there that's not a lenticular cloud. I know I'm up against it there, and that is what it is, and there's no way getting around that. There's absolutely no way getting around that. And this thing kind of shows the disparity between who we are and who we think we are, and the story we think we're in, the story we believe we're in, and the blatant story that's absolutely in your face as you've watched over the last 5 years. The storms just get exponentially bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger with this thing's arrival. We've seen it as a tiny twin tail, and now we see this, and that's tripled in size in the space of in the space of one day, and this thing is, you can only see it when it's at this furthest point from the sun from our perspective, and now it will be out of view. Now it will be lost in the sunlight, and it's up there, but you just can't see it because you can't see beyond the sheen. And so that's it. So we're here at the Grand Junction, and and you see everything in place. Now, every one of you can now see why I said don't leave Europe. Every one of you can see this thing now and throw your stories of belief or whatever you've got on it. It's atmospheric. I don't say that as an insult. I really don't. We're all entitled to our opinion. I had a friend coming over yesterday trying to plead with me that it was atmospheric, and the timing of it, the predictable timing of it at that place, exactly where I said you see it, just tells you it's absolutely not atmospheric. You know, and just too much corroborating evidence to support that is just utterly, you know, all of us are channeling the doubt and denial of what subverts this world. All of us are that, a part of that. And that is what's about to be either become us completely or ripped clean out of us. It's only connected to us. All the hack is only connected to us through electronic and electromagnetic frequencies. This will rip all of that out. This is the cleanser. That's why it's considered to be Shiva. That's why it is the destroyer of illusions, because it rips all that away. Only that which is rooted into the very heart of the human state will remain. It's like the leaves on the palm tree in the massive storm. They stay attached. Everything else is ripped away. And your soul, only that which is absolutely rooted into the heart of the matter will stay. And if there's nothing rooted into the heart of the matter, then you will be an empty vessel at the end of that. If you're not connected to your soul through this, and you'll just be an empty vessel. You'll, as in the days of the Colburn Bible, you know, one of the last accounts of this, held by the Catholic Church in the Glastonbury Abbey until Henry VIII destroyed it in the time of the disillusionment of the monasteries, and then released those works into the public domain, and we all started hearing about the Colburn, the text that writes about this big red fiery dragon that circles the world about, that doesn't punish humanity for the mistakes it makes. It punishes humanity for the mistakes it fails to rectify. And he said that when it's left in its last big transit, those who came down from their hiding places had no memory of who they were, and their guides and their gods were gone. They weren't connected to that. They weren't connected to the heart of the matter. They were in a million other stories. They were in control of the story. They were in a whole different things. They weren't connected to the world they were living with at all. They were completely hooked up to an ego agenda that was playing them like fools. They had no focus. They had no choice to overcome the noise and actually see what was happening and be true to that and rise to that. So they just became controllers, Anunnaki controllers. They just control agendas in any which way they can. They have no interest in whether it's good or bad. They just need control, because that is the operating principle of where their soul actually comes from. That is the ego-based soul, and that is hacking this world to build artificial realities, energetic realities that are parasited from this world. Through your experiences and awareness, they overcome us with anger and fear and jealousy and greed, and they enter through that, and we create on this level in their astral realms. For them, we become slave architects and builders for their energetic realms in these low frequencies, and it's all me, mine, I. It's all me, mine, I. Me, mine, I. You're wrong and I'm right. Anything to disempower you, because it's all about disempowering you, so that you do not power in your realm, you power in theirs. It's all an energetic fight to seize the day, to energetically seize, to dominate the point of astral manifestation beyond this realm. And this, when you start seeing it, you can start seeing why they wrote the book Celestine Prophecy. You know, that Robert Redfield, was it? He wrote Celestine Prophecy and showed how there was all these energetic hacks, and how we had these kind of different types of, you know, these poor me, these aloof, these different types of way of affecting a person where you parasite them. You come in as a friend, but you're actually a parasite that's bringing them down, destabilizing and stealing their reality, making them build in your reality by making them into a servant to you. Constant little digs and little things, making sure that someone's not feeling appreciated, feeling disempowered, feeling doubted, making sure that anything they might consider as amazing is broken down into normal, not spectacular. They kill magic. They're magic killers, and that's what are controllers. And the controllers, they don't come from anywhere out there. We channel them. And that's the big battle that we're in. You really should read Laughing Gas if you haven't read it by this stage and you've been watching me this long. You know, for many of you, you're not going to be prepared for this. And those of you that we've just got to go on our journey. You know, we've all just got to go on our journey. You know, it's you've got to go on your journey and find your way. You know, it's in all this. So sorry, it's a bit of a long video, and I don't know what else to say really. You know, you've got that's gone round us and is going ahead of us and cutting in towards us, and we've got some big stuff coming in. You know, I just wanted to show you one last shot actually, which was I nearly showed it. It wasn't that shot. It was that shot. It was the same video maker, the same I think French video maker, UFO on the OVNI. Your I don't know how to say that. UFO VNI 2012. They also showed this. It was probably about I can't remember the name of the. It was posted on the 11th of March, and it basically just showed you what I'm expecting to see. These orbs entering into. They weren't shooting stars. They were moving slower, and they tracked across, and they were just showing them in the moving across the coming into the night sky, and of course these were these same objects. And at one point, not so long before, you saw the pair coming in. The same thing, saying this was before. She was just saying this was a certain amount of time before, but not that long before. This is all recent. Just what we're expecting to see. Everything, you know, it's every part of it. There's just absolutely no doubt this thing is there. To deny it means that you don't want to see it, and I get that. I totally get that. Honey in the Heart. Honey in the Heart. And 1,000 thank yous for following me this far. You know, we've all got different opinions on how this works, and you've seen me. I've had to update this model constantly through this as we've better understood this, and obviously come out of a heliocentric model and start seeing my place in the universe and the system I really live in, and how this grand deception has worked, and how we've taken away any concept of even understanding how our sun moves. We have no vision of that in our current model whatsoever, as I have a massive, very clear vision of how our sun moves and how the planets interact with that, and these different portals of coming in and going out. And for those who've said they'd like me to kind of like work out where the planets were at their point of date of birth, their date of birth, and also their point of conception, which I think is far more important. When that first contact was made, and where the planets were at that point, which is obviously the real arrival point, or the real connection. That's when the soul contracts are being drawn up. That's when the connection and the astrological connection is occurring. That's when the divinity occurs. The union of this whole contract is brought together of all these energies. That is kind of like, that is the magical moment. Not that the birth is not important, because obviously it's a very important point, because that is the celebration of the human journey. But in terms of the soul journey and the soul contract, it's very interesting to see where you were at the point of this when the soul contract was drawn up, and so and what the influences were and what you came in on, and you get a very clear understanding of what you might be going out on as well, because where you're coming from and the systems that you're really around. But I've not forgotten you. I'm just putting a bit of time at the moment, because I'm of a whole generic mindset on this, and I always have done. And what I do for one, I do for all. And for me, if I'm going to have to work out one person's, I'm going to have to work out all people. So I'm building putting all of these loops into a new loop that's going to go right back to kind of like we're not too sure, but it's coming. It's coming. We're working out the loops now, and then we're going to overlay those, and then anyone will be able to see where all these planets were at that point. And I'll individually contact you, those of you who've wanted that information, but I'll also release it on a video, so you can all have that, and you'll start getting a window of what was going on when you arrived. You know, in the real system you actually orbit, not this bullshit story, this kind of like this directionless sun. Like I say, anyone who builds the astronomical model, as you've been told, this 500-year-old bullshit model that you've been given, where they invent a dwarf planet every 84 years without any trouble at all, and no one questions it, and every dwarf planet is given a different forward motion. So no one can show the current model with the sun moving, because everyone's saying the sun's going in a different direction. It's just like, this is the standard model. Standard bullshit. Standard utter bullshit. Offensive bullshit. Rude bullshit. Just pushed by kind of like cliched old aristocratic kind of like these intellectuals that are, this is my capital. It's all that nonsense that drives the whole thing. It's just so ugly. We're so past that. We're so moving past that, and if we don't move past that, we go under the wheels of that stench. Horrible, horrible. What has controlled the astronomical kind of like picture? It's a horrible story, a very disempowering story that gives you a static sun that sits in the middle. It's just, we're to try and communicate with the gods with this horrible slave model. It takes all the movement, the energy. Einstein equals mc squared equals mass times the constant velocity of light. As in very fast, times itself. As in mass moving very fast, squared. It's just like, what happens when you take the energy out of that equation? What happens when you take the movement away from your sun, and then you can communicate with the universe around you and the gods and that sort of stuff? Say, dear God, I know I am right. I live on a static sun, or I live orbiting a static sun that doesn't move. I'm here in this totally Christian nonsense story, communicating with you, saying I love you and I will kill non-Christians for you, good old Christian soldiers. That's what it is, isn't it? It's just nutbags. It's just all nutbag. That is the story of religion. Just control. It just breeds controllers who just have to. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's just control of the story. That's all they want. That's a big part of the agenda that's either coming utterly here now, or it's utterly leaving. You can only be one or the other. You can't be both after this. We're all choosing a soul now. All of you. Me, you, us, all of us. Your planet will no longer support duality. One or the other, folks. It's a fucking terrible decision to be able to force through right now, because inside it's psychological, messy. Outside is a real simple thing that's going on. It's just one way or the other, but so many of you either have to come religiously, that doubt and that noise and that, or something other. And your souls, you want to keep your souls. Your souls need serious commitment from you to enter into the equation and stay this ride with you. they need some serious assurances. And I don't know how many of you are up for that level of dedication to keep the souls that you have, because many of you are not realizing just how sacredly fantastic and utterly unbelievably fantastic your highest aspects are, and to keep those highest aspects, you're going to have to lobby your souls to want to stay with you through this, because you are asking them to invest take a massive risk on you in this time to stay with you through this time. What they risk to stay here with a human, incarnating in a human being that's simply not up for the task, it's too risky. Too risky. You know, you've got to be one or the other now, and you can only be one, and if you're not utterly one, then you're the other. We are all, as in Matrix, the girl in the red dress. All of us. We can all be taken by our ego aspect. It's how much ability you have to stay your highest aspect through this. To not snap, to not wield, to not change your side. And I don't know how many of you are up for that, really. Truly. Most will buckle at the first hurdle. But maybe not. Maybe something else happens here. But you will decide, your choice, which side of the fence you're on now. It was all your decision. Everything that's happening now for you is your decision. And the stories they're going to throw at you, they're trying to take you into a frequency, and you've got to decide that operating frequency. And they are going to seriously stack the odds against you. And the more you are connected to your highest aspiration, the more help you can bring in. But if you can't meet yourself, if you can't be honest with yourself, well, that's that. That's that. Your soul is safe. I promise you that. Your soul is safe. And this is all a magical experience, and it's all just learning and wonder. You know. Good luck through this big transit. This quite likely might be one of my last videos. You know, if we do get this big burst, I'm imagining something quite big coming in now. A lot of stuff's going to change after this. A lot of stuff's going to change. Everything's going to begin after this. And yeah, to your own self be true. I don't decide any of this, you do. You will decide whether you are doing your best or not. And only your best will get you through this. That's all I'm saying. Only your absolute level best. Nothing short of that. Nothing short of that will get you through this. Because everything's stacked against you. And that's the way it's been on this planet for a long time, and that is the process we're going through, and it's just it is the way it is. And go with your stories, however important your story is, whatever you're proving it for. Why? What does it mean? Why do you hold on to them? Thank you for these times. Thank you for your support. Another thank out to JDoc74, one of the people who kind of funded my campaign, this whole thing a little bit. You know, he was amazing. You know, a few years back, and I've really not done much in terms of much to return to kind of really thank him. It's been a tough few years really, since my mum died and since doing this. I've kind of like, you know, my own community here, it's just awkward to talk about any of this. You know, we were all brought up believing that carbon dioxide was evil, and that, you know, and anyone questions that now is questioning the whole environmental thing, and so we just, you know, and so it's going in that direction, and there's not a lot I can do to change that anymore now. I realise that. I think we all realise that this has kind of got to happen now, this whole process, and it will be whatever it will be. But I have done my best in this, even though I've not been the best, kind of most active player in the last few years. I've just done the best I can in this whole process. I've spent a lot more time questioning my own model and trying to work out, as I go to rebuild it, all the corrections that need to be made to it, whether that means we'll go anywhere, whether this will mean I can produce, you know, all these sightings go back to what they were back in the kind of days of the last 80 years really. It becomes a less frequent event. It becomes probably every 12 years again, probably for another best part of 100 years. We'll get big earthquakes but there'll be single day events, there'll be single day volcanic events. All this sort of stuff reverts back to like what we've been seeing for the last 100 years. You know, and then we're just getting further and further from it after this. It's we've got one more big flyby after this, as far as I can see, which is the kind of like August flyby. The big one that goes out, I think, in August. You know, how big that will be, I don't know. If there was ever an object that could cause the cessation of the sun, to completely block the sun out for 3 or 4 days, or, you know, that sort of duration. The only of all the flybys is the one that Nick Thomas caught in 2020. That's the only one I can really see that could really cause the type of kind of like 3 days of darkness, and then cause a super close flyby that could really kind of, you know, this is going to be big. This is going to be big, what's coming in. They've all been big, so just recently, but this is going to be particularly big. This is 9s on the it's potentially bigger. This is massive, what's coming in. This is, you know, you're going to see Britain is right at the wrong end of the Eurasian plate. It's the wrong end. It's like, imagine the whole Eurasian plate and see that as a kind of massive, great, you know, what do they call the strongest point of a plate? They call it the kind of like the craton. It's not part of a craton. Britain isn't a craton. You know, Hadrian's Wall is a fault line that actually goes right through the whole country. That's what divides the kind of north from the south. That's why they built the kind of Hadrian's Wall, the division on that point, because it's a fault line. You look at the geology around Bristol, you know, here, Bath, volcanic, Roman baths, hot springs. Come on, guys. Look at the geology of Bristol. The Clifton Gorge is just utterly torn to bits. Everything's moved and chungled. Every plate is at a 45. You look at it, the whole thing is just broken plates. You're on the edge of the craton, and if the whole craton is moving slightly north with this whole shift, and it shifts, it's like Britain is right on the front end of that shaking movement. It's like tinny mudguards on a chieftain tank. We're in the wrong place for this. So there's going to be earthquakes, there's going to be volcanism, there's going to be lots of shaking, there's going to be crazy storms, there's going to be tidal anomalies. Everything, you know, the oceans drop down in the 40 meters during this whole transit, haven't they? They've been, you know, the Venice rivers are dry now. Now that's all going to reverse. All that water is now going to bunch up in the Atlantic, and then we'll see. And it's going to move and migrate up there, and that whole transition of water is now bunching up in the northern aspect of the globe, and the pressures that's going to put on some of the plates, you know, and that the biggest plate that affects Britain and the east coast of America is actually the dividing fault line between the Eurasian plate and the African plate that runs right out to the mid-Atlantic rift, right below Britain, right underneath the Atlantic. You know, the last time we saw that going off was the same sort of time where the Azores, that's where the fault line that meets the Azores, where that fault line meets the mid-Atlantic rift is the Azores. Those volcanoes there, that's why we're going to see seismology there. And when we start seeing seismology there, you know that when you get a big differential of pressure of the oceans moving from one side of the planet to the other, and those pressures apply either side of those tectonic plates, if there's a shift, that's tsunami season. For kind of like for Western Europe and Eastern America, that's tsunami season. And these are the type of pressures that we're going to start seeing building up. And potentially not now, but also potentially now. This is where they beat the war drum. After this flyby, you know, Fukushima, bang, 11th of March 2011, 1 week later, NATO went full-scale war with Africa. Full-scale war. Massive bombardment. Utter destruction. After the gold, no one knows where all Gaddafi's gold went. He was just about to release the gold dinar. Utterly stopped in his tracks, just like Syria, just like Iran is being now. Just like all of these countries, everything to stop. Fiscal equality around the globe. We've all got fair, valid currencies based on real value, and the interchange is based on real intrinsic value, not just a gun under the table. We will kill you if you don't play. It's all changed now. It's all changed. A whole new playing table is being set before you, and you either work with that or you go against that. And only peaceful negotiations through this, putting the guns down, walking away from war, is going to get you through this. But the message was given to me when I was shown this whole Planet X system. I'd written the whole book. It was all about the wall. You approach the wall. Nothing gets through the wall that is of war. That was the message that was given to me when I wrote Laughing Gas. Is you approach the wall, and I said, what is the wall? What makes the wall? And I was never told. And when I finally finished, you know, I was told you finished Laughing Gas, and your answer will be given to you what the wall is. I finished Laughing Gas, and I get this message, and I was shown the planets passing. And I said, tell me they miss. And the answer I was given was, yes, they miss. It is not human karma. It is deemed you're not a race of war, but you are a race subverted with war. And that will now change. And that's all that's happening now. Is that in the Colburn Bible, you're not punished for the mistakes you make, but the mistakes you fail to rectify. This will rectify the mistakes we fail to rectify. In other words, the karmic equations that were set up when we entered this plane have to be settled. That was our contract to pay our karmic dues. Do as thy will is the whole of the law. But this is a karmic realm. Pay your karmic dues. Nothing is expected of you other than that which you want to give, that which you want to offer, that which you want to be in service to. It is totally your choice. This realm is a very selfish realm. It's a third dimensional selfish realm. Do as thy will is the whole of the law. But pay your karmic dues. A lot of beings are terrified of coming earth and getting stuck in karmic realms they can't get out of because they don't know how to be nice. They don't want to be nice. Everyone should be their slave. They are special. They are the special people. They are the important people. Coming out of that now. Coming into equality. Coming into fairness. Coming into decency. Coming out of greed. Control. There's going to be a messy transit. Good luck with this time. Be the best human you can be. If you want to make a donation to my channel at the moment, please, you see the donation at the top of my page. Please help any which way you can. I'm struggling at the moment. We're all struggling. Anything you want to do to help me, do whatever you like. It's you know, to your own self be true. You know, you've all got your gods. You're all true to that. But I guarantee you, do not kid yourself. Do not kid yourself if you think, if you haven't got a plan of how and where you and what you're connected to in this story. You need to be coming back to the breath. And then now, and really boiling down your intentions and deciding what side of the fence you're on and what you're part of and what you're not part of. Because the reason I wrote Laughing Gas was I saw myself and where I thought I was an environmentalist, I was an activist, I was everything, but I was connected to no good. I was connected to no good. There were horrible stories that were subverting this world and they were dragging me down. And when this world went through its destructive process, I couldn't go to a higher place because I was karmically entangled in the emotional mass of the karmic debt in this world. I couldn't escape it. The gravity of my karmic attachment to something that was so wrong and so heavy because what I believed, I thought I was special, I was right with all my stuff. It took me down with it. When you get taken down with it, as the astral realm is destroyed, you go through if you're connected only to that astral realm and you go with that astral realm, it's the destruction of your everything. And if you are not connected to a higher place, to your highest aspiration through this, that's why your soul is very nervous about staying with you at this time. Because you might not stay with it, you might not be connected to it, you might not be committed to it. I think you are, but not even slightly interested in it. And it's an awkward situation that is better walled off behind a nice wall of invisible belief. Stand behind that and pretend you're not there. Pretend it's not going on. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Get over it. You're either in or you're out. You're either in or you're out. Being in right now is quite a heavy breath. It's quite a heavy breath to take to fully realise what it means to be all in rather than half in. Good luck through these times. Good luck. Your golden rings of light, protection. Use your golden rings. Visualize them when it's tough. Invite the help in. Know that you are worth it. You're worth it. You'll have to meet that halfway. You'll have to meet that halfway. You'll have to be better. You'll have to be your best. This ain't gonna happen. Not a chance. Not a slight chance. Too much on the table. Too much on the table. You know that now. I think you all know that now. Honey in the heart. 1,000 thank yous. All the love in the world. Take care. Ciao.